What all these openings have in common is that white is able to place more pawns in the center, thus securing a space advantage. I know you love to trade pieces more than Winnie the Pooh loves honey, but in order to convert the space advantage, you must basically do two things. Avoid exchanges and focus on restricting your opponent instead of playing for tricks. That would be the quick answer, but you know it's easier said than done, so for that, I'm gonna be walking you through two games that I recently played on my speedrun account, and I also decided to sprinkle some juicy exercises along the way, so why don't we dive right in? Right, everybody, so back with the rapid time format. We haven't done that actually in a while. And my opponent, Krager, is going for the Benoni, so when they meet d4 with c5, the good news is that you're close to winning. The bad news are that you can no longer play the Jobava London. So, key idea, d4. In order to get the Jobava London, you need to have them play d5 first. So, if they do anything else, you kind of have to adapt. The good news is that you have a great position after d5, simply because you're going to get a massive space advantage. Like, I can already do e4, but personally, I prefer to start knight c3 in case that they take. We get a very strong knight, and after knight f6, we are about to get one of the nicest traps in the Benoni, because a lot of people make the mistake of taking on d5 with the pawn. So he should play, okay, something else. Yeah, he did d5. So if he was to take, there is this very beautiful idea to play e5. And the problem for black is that when they move the knight, we can take on d5 with the queen or with the knight in good condition. So what ends up happening is that people go for d4, yeah, trying to like counterattack. But then it's pretty funny that we can take their knight, they take our knight, but at the end of the variation, there is a check on the e file. And after queen e2, shockingly, black doesn't have a way to block the check other than bishop e7, simply losing a piece after fe. Now, of course, none of that is going to happen, but we get an old Benoni. So e5, I'm going to do knight f3, targeting the pawn, and it's very important to also learn how to play this kind of chess. Because when we do the Jobava London games are usually a bit more aggressive, if you want to say. But you also need to know how to squeeze them positionally, because against openings like these type of let's say setups are just bad in the long run. They're bad because they lack space. So they're not bad because you can have a nice streak and get some quick attack. No, you just need to develop your pieces. And speaking of that, I think I'm gonna get started with knight d2. So for a second I say develop pieces, I'm moving the same piece again. Okay, knight to d2. The idea with knight d2 is that we are preparing to bring the horse to c4 and we are staying flexible in the same time. So knight c4 is gonna be nicely supported by a4. And my opponent is never really gonna be able to do a6 b5, which is really one of the main things most beginners tend to ignore and get in trouble against the Benoni, because they don't meet a6 with a4, they just ignore and black gets to expand, and then it gets pretty tricky. On bishop g4 we have interesting choice. So f3, keeping all the pieces on the board. Bishop e2, interesting strategical idea, just exchanging, basically leaving my opponent with a passive bishop. But in general, whenever you're having a space advantage like we do, because our pawn is on d5, it already crossed the center of the board, you want to keep as many pieces on the board as you can, because it's just going to become very difficult for your opponent to move around. Like, okay, a very common analogy for this is that he's having a lot of old furniture in a one-room apartment. So, yeah, That's just, you know, tough to really move around. And okay, after bishop h5, we could also get a little bit frisky, but I'm gonna save that for later. I'm just gonna continue my initial maneuver. Go knight c4. b5 still not available because the knight can capture, and I could play a4, yeah? So this is the biggest thing. a6, b5. As long as you stay away from that, you should pretty much have these Benoni guys in control because there's not really much else to actually blunder. So knight bd7. If you want to take it to the next level, you can even go a5 with the idea that still b5 you got the en passant. So I'm gonna do it, just fixing this bit of weak square. And normally after bishop e7 castle, black ends up doing rook b8, b6 or b5 regardless, sort of out of desperation because they just don't really have anything to play for. But after b6, then you also have idea to take and then do knight a5. You're preparing to infiltrate via c6. So bishop e7, natural and expected. I'm inclining towards bishop e2, bishop e3. Also knight e3, sometimes it can be like a useful square for the knight. Heading towards f5, but it feels like already many knight moves. Should actually get in some development, so I'm just gonna do bishop e2. I could do this, but I don't think we're really in a rush. So might as well develop first. Can play bishop e3. g4, h4. Really tempting. I'm actually gonna go for it. Question is, if I want to do that plan, does it make sense to play bishop e3, or do I want to keep the e3 square available for the knight in any instance? Perhaps trying some knight f5. Kind of feel like the answer should be yes. I may want to get that knight if I'm going to play for a checkmate. But let's do g4 first. I don't think any sacrifice was interesting. Check. We can just like move the king anywhere. He has nothing. And now we're basically going to be in full control. So h4, threatening to win a piece. He has to do something. Yeah, but now h6 is what we call a hook. I can try to make some use of the hook right away. Or I can play h5. Okay, I actually have a pretty funny idea. So I'm going to do h5. I'm not saying this is the best idea, but it's pretty funny. And then because he's going to do some knight e8 with idea to check me, I think I have an interesting way to get castled. Yeah, so knight e8 on the board. And let's do queen d2. And against the check that's likely to happen, I could do king f1, king g2. Oh, never mind, he plays bishop g5, which is good try. But against the check, this is where I was going with it. Potentially just the slow march of the king to b2, and then rook g1, and then g5 would have actually been quite nice. But yeah, he doesn't check me. And what it's actually nice about these positions is that even the endgames are much better. So you'd think that, okay, black gets to exchange queens, he's sort of okay. No. Like he got rid of the bad bishop and the queen, so he doesn't get mated and he doesn't have a bad bishop. But ask yourself, how is this guy from h7 ever like doing anything? So he's basically gonna be playing down a piece for the rest of the game. Pretty much. Like this knight cannot move. Literally his pieces are paralyzed. This knight also cannot really move because of knight b6. So it's just a matter of, yeah, because bishop is on this side and it's out of the game. We have to focus on the other side of the board. And we're basically just going to be playing with an extra piece. So there's actually a very famous Capablanca game that comes to mind with the same theme. It was, of course, a completely different position, but one of the pieces was restricted like that, and he effortlessly won on the other side. I'll link that game at the end of the video if you guys want to check it out. I forgot who his opponent was. Sorry, I'm not some kind of Magnus Carlsen type of memory, so not at all. I'm gonna go king d2 and then rook b1, b4. That is the plan to open it up. Okay, before opening it up, we could also consider, because I see b4, cb, he could potentially get juicy square for the knight on c5. It makes sense to do knight a4, knight b6, exchange this knight first, and then finally break with b4. Also, interesting idea, you can consider rook a3, rook b3 to rook lift. Yeah, I think I'm gonna actually do that. Another benefit of having the extra space. Still, he cannot play knight c7, I believe, because of, that's just dropping the pawn. And yeah, knight f6, rook b3, just applying pressure, rook d7, potentially gonna be played. I could do rook b6, yeah. Now the knight is yet again stuck. He was trying to move it, but it has to babysit this. And still, I got my option of playing b4 on the agenda. It's just that now he's also playing down a rook. Like he's playing down a bishop and down a rook for the rest of the game. And we're just gonna do everything that we want on that side. So just rook b1, b4, open it up, no knight landing on c5, no counterplay. Man, these are the kind of games that are the most enjoyable to play because there are no tactics, just punishing your opponent that plays an inferior opening like the Benoni. You just have a bit of extra space and you can see that games can be decided by this little. And for a lot of people watching, like, okay, my opponent is 1640, it's some kind of, future prodigy, yeah, that we're playing. But no, even against players that are, let's say, stronger, it seems like whether it's 1600 or like 2000, you can win in the same simple manner, yeah, just by applying solid fundamentals. And okay, g6, and to basically get like a nice final picture, h6. Bishop taller pawn, knight has no moves. This is just kind of summing up the action. So yeah, he's gonna try knight g8, f5. Maybe I shouldn't completely laugh in my opponent's face before the game is over. But I'm pretty sure we could stick with our plan and he has the same issue. Even if we like lose the pawn, it's like really that pawn is so meaningless in this position considering the fact that he's playing down so many pieces. So just gonna do rook d1 b4. Gonna have to open it up and then he's gonna be losing these pawns and we're probably gonna be queening a5. So yeah, he's doing some nonsense. I mean, what is this? This is a productive meeting at work right here in a nutshell. Just all the guys smoking cigarettes and playing League of Legends on their work computers. So, okay, he takes, there is free pawn, It's just a buffet at this point, so just go at the office and basically take advantage of the free buffet. This is what we're gonna be doing here, not him. Rook d6, okay, I can trade, but that improves his knight. So you know that we're not trying to help him out. So I'm gonna take this. Knight has still no moves. He takes. Potentially I can consider to turn onto his king. I can also play knight c4. Consider chasing that rook, but the simplest is something like rook b6. Huh. I still want to kind of play for domination, so rook b6 allows him to take, and then we can take with the rook. Yeah, that's fine. And the idea is that he's still unable to move, because knight c7 drops the f6 knight. So he's gonna just lose the pawn without any counterplay. And it's all about the fact that we have managed to restrict that bishop, and okay. In chess, there is this saying that bad moves don't come alone. Or whenever he has, let's say, a problem, a weakness like this, it starts spreading like an infection. So you see this bishop that's trapped on g8. I mean, this is how you used to get punished as a kid when you were in kindergarten. They just make you stay next to the wall. But this is just some next level thing. I don't know what you can possibly do to be in that bishop's shoes. Anyways, just gonna play knight c4. So he wants knight d6 and get some air. Gonna knight c4. It's all about not letting this knight move and his pieces are stuck. Can try knight d7, but maybe rook d6. We're pinning him. Also, I have to speed up a little bit just because we have about a minute left on the clock, but should be enough. Oh, what happened? I just hang my rook from genius to idiot in a second. All right. I mean, the position should still be winning thanks to the passed pawn, but that was, holy smokes, unnecessary. Okay. 95. Targets the pawn, targets the knight. Okay. Proof that yeah, I should have quit chess before I even started. Takes on f3. Just gonna do king to d3, and I wanna do bishop b5. Play something like this. I mean, honestly, we might still be better, but I just have no time and pretty much lost a good chunk of my advantage in yeah, in the most ridiculous way possible. Expecting it to go 95. Take and push. You should try I mean, you cannot do f5 right away, but to set it up somehow. Okay, free rook. Still, just because we lost the rook in that position, is still lost because of the bishop being out of the way. But now we get a trade. He's gonna take on a7. Time to do a little bit of pre-moving, not to lose on time. Okay, will we take his bishop? No, he keeps it. It's an important piece. Look at his bishop. That's a funny guy. Oops, gonna take this. Honestly, I may have made his life easier by taking that bishop. I shouldn't have taken that bishop. You know, you want to really meditate when you have such bishop. Okay, can we mate? I mean, okay. I wonder if I'm gonna mess up this checkmate as well. All right, here it is, finally. That got a little bit closer than usual because I forgot to mention a critical detail. According to world champion Tigran Petrosyan, this pawn structure is actually named the V pawn structure from Victory. I tried to follow your guide and I only got this. What should I do? Come on, dude, you cannot be fooling around about a space advantage. So as punishment, here we have the first exercise. Black has just played the move knight to d4, centralizing, and we can notice there is a space advantage thanks to the pawns. So what do you play? Pause the video and think about it. Now, first thing while looking for the solution is that you want to keep in mind to keep pieces on the board. It's natural to go for bishop e3, let's say. Development move, attacking the knight, more or less forcing them to take, and then you develop the queen, you get good development, but all of a sudden black can easily finish development. With d6, knight f6, I mean, sure, you're still tiny better, but notice they don't have trouble connecting rooks, soon queen c7, a6, b5, and it's a complicated game. Now, instead of that, if you wanna keep more pieces on the board, the start is to go knight d2. Weird, I know, but it's the space advantage. Now, let's just say black would do d6, preparing to play knight f6 without allowing e5. Pause the video again because this move is actually gonna blow your mind. And this is not some kind of crazy, exaggerated example. It's actually something that I had in one of my games a while ago. So the point is, knight on d4 looks very annoying, very tough to get rid of. But in fact, it doesn't really have any squares. So if you could attack it with a pawn, that would be winning the knight. Therefore, the key move is knight to b1, threatening c3, and it's too late. My opponent tried to go a6, rescue the knight via b5, but I was just in time with a4, and c3 is coming on the next move. There is literally nothing to be done about saving this knight, so white will be completely winning. Now, if that one wasn't juicy enough, here's another example from Benoni this time. So black has just played the move knight to b5, threatening to take and offering trades. Yet again, same theme. Notice that there is a space advantage. So pause the video and think about what would you play. Right off the bat, it's easy to dismiss a move like bishop d2, defensive, where black can take, and just allowing these trades would make his game so much easier. Additionally, taking on b5 would only improve his pawn structure. So that again won't really be making steps into the right direction. So instead of that, yeah, we must do something with this knight that's being attacked. Knight a4, I'll give you the wooden spoon if you thought about that move. It's a good move, avoiding trades and gaining tempo, but the knight on a4 doesn't really have such long-term prospects. So instead, the brilliant solution is to actually play knight b1. Avoiding these trades, preparing to play c3, killing these pieces, and the knight can be maneuvered via d2 to c4. And let's just say black tries to be annoying and activate. This is simply pseudo activity because they are not controlling the center with their pawns. So we can easily push back their pieces after something like f4. Knight has to retreat. Knight goes on to c4, and all of a sudden, the rook is forced to step back, leaving the isolated pawn undefended. So white again would be grabbing an easily winning position. Before we move on to the next game, I just wanted to give you a quick update related to my Jobava London course, because I've announced it almost a year ago, and in total I've been working on it for almost 2 years, and figured out it's easy to lose track with the content in the meantime. So if you want, you can subscribe to this newsletter. You don't need to put credit card info or anything. You just need to type in your email, and this way I will notify you when the course releases. So you can do that by clicking the pinned comment, or just type in alexpanzia.com, and yeah, there you have it. Hey, in case you couldn't really find these, please don't feel discouraged, because these ones were in fact pretty difficult. But stay tuned, because in the following game, I'm gonna show you how you can easily win chess games by simply controlling one key square. No blunders needed, no tactics, just one key square. Alright everybody, apparently we found ourselves a white game. Gonna be opening it up with e4 facing 1900 opponent from India. And he goes for the Benoni. Okay, this is actually very interesting stuff, because I was really looking forward to practice the Benoni and show you how to play these kind of positions with extra space. He plays the e6 version. Now, the first critical moment, it's already on the board, because lots of people would have the reflex of going c4, but against the old Benoni, so basically against d4, c5, one of the key details is, firstly, to push. We can no longer go for a Jobava London, but then you don't want to play c4, you want to go knight c3. So either take with a piece on d5, or play with d4 next. So, okay, we're getting the position with a knight on d5, and all right. This is very good. It's just a matter of how do we approach it. Because natural play is fine. Like going something like e4, supporting the knight on d5, knight f3, maybe bishop c4. If the knight goes on f6, you pin it with the bishop. That's okay. But if you think about it in like the bigger picture, it's all gonna be about the d5 square. So you can come up with a pretty ingenious idea to support that knight by the way you develop. So yeah, take this as an exercise. Feel free to pause the video. Think about what would you do. Obviously, I'm not the one to reinvent the wheel. I have prior knowledge, but I find this idea still very unique and instructive. Because you go g3. Basically saying, okay, when they do knight f6, go challenge the knight. The knight is going to be ultra well defended, more or less. And after knight f6, I find it super important to go bishop g5. With the idea that, okay, I mean, we're not going to give our opponent an easy way to get rid of the knight. And even at the cost of having to sacrifice the bishop pair for it, if we can just play for the grip on the d5 square, that is going to be enough to win the game quite a lot of the times, frankly. So this may sound a little bit exaggerated right now, but bear with me. You'll notice that, okay, we simply have to finish development and this is going to be very good. Yeah, I think I'm going for that. Queen a5 check. We have at the very least bishop back. So yeah, if he tries to unpin, there is that. And bishop e7 threatens to take. So now we do this move. There is a pawn that's hanging. So we're going to protect while also restrict the enemy bishop. And we have one more key move to actually get an amazing setup. Because it's very tempting to play knight f3, but you're kind of forgetting the main goal in this position, in this structure. It's all about securing control over the d5 square, which is, yeah, just really super valuable asset right now. Basically, keeping him with this backward pawn on d6. That's why it's actually so valuable to have the knight. And you'll see what I mean in the next couple of moves. So in order to support the knight, knight h3 is even better than the natural knight f3. Knight h3 looks weird. Like, why the heck would you place your knight on the edge? But plan is to go knight f4, just supporting its body from d5. And if opponent goes for something like bishop takes on h3, that is going to be strategic suicide. Because he's gonna give away one of his only pieces that can really fight for the control over the critical d5 square. My opponent plays 95. I can castle, I can do knight f4. Does it matter? Probably not. So yeah, I'm just gonna complete development, I guess. Still give him the opportunity of taking on h3. Whoops, I meant to show this. And yeah, this is gonna be just a simple positional game. The plan is to go knight f4, and because he has backward pawn, these games you're gonna be able to win simply by doubling up the rooks onto the backward pawn. You know what? You can even get a triple stack if you can. So yeah, kind of difficult to get a triple stack here, but it's very easy to do something like queen c2, rook a d1, rook d2, rook f d1. Double up the rooks, then yeah, there is simple threat of taking on f6 and then the pawn collapses. So yeah, many people tend to underestimate the weakness of a backward pawn. And if you're still like a little bit confused on this terminology, backward pawn is a pawn that's placed on a semi-open file. And it's unable to advance because it cannot be supported by any of its own pawns. So notice that having he had pawn on c6, d6 would have not been backward because he has potential to push in the future. But now, even when we move this knight away, he's going to be unable to push because we're going to have so much pressure on the d file, and he would lose the pawn, thus making this pawn backward, which is such a big weakness. And to kind of give you a little bit of better context for how bad the backward pawn is, you can think of it as we won the d6 pawn already. If you just do this proper play, develop your queen on like a normal square and then double up rooks. So I can do queen d2 as well, but the issue is that the queen is gonna stay in the way of the rook double up. So I want to have rooks on d2, d1. So I can't have my queen over there. So that's why I'm looking queen c2. I'm also looking queen b3 to attack this pawn, but also is bishop e6 a good move in itself? It kind of opens up the door for tactics. And I'm just looking, hey, cannot we just win the game immediately with knight f6 and then pick up the d6 pawn? I mean, that probably works. But just to prove the point, I'm going to do exactly what I told you in the beginning. Okay, you think maybe it's not such an effective strategy? Let's figure it out. I'm about to do rook d1, rook d2, and double up. The only thing that I kind of need to watch out for is when I play rook d2, knight c4 is a bit annoying. So I might start with knight f4 just in case. Play rook d1 on the next move, and it's just so difficult for my opponent to play. Like, his queen is literally frozen. It's 30 degrees outside, but the queen is frozen. The queen cannot move because knight f6 is a problem, and yeah, he goes bishop back, just rook a d1. Simple moves, central play. Okay, goes bishop to c6. All right, so I'm dying to double up, but there is knight c4. So the question is, do we simply play b3, stopping knight c4 and then we double up? Or do we play c4 and then we double up? Like c4, the only issue that I see behind a move like c4 is whether he can try to use this pawn as a hook for some b5 activity. But it feels pretty loose for him because the bishop's going to be undefended, maybe some knight f6. Yeah. Okay. Also, funny motive to attack the bishop and go for double pawns, but no, I'm just gonna do b3. I'm just gonna do what I promised. I'm gonna stick to my word. I just wanted to give you an overview that, okay, maybe knight h5 and the bishop doesn't have such a nice retreating square, you can consider such move. But we do simple play. Rook d2, rook d1, knight f6, and then win the backward pawn. That's literally all we have to do. I just had to find this little prophylactic idea. Yeah, not give him knight c4. So, okay. It's a close position. There is nothing that's really about to explode. So you can take the time usually. In these kind of semi-close positions, it's a lot more important to have a long-term idea of what to do rather than do some concrete attacks in the heat of the moment, let's say. So bishop g5, is this threatening anything? So it's good for him that he's avoiding knight f6, but he is creating a bit of an annoying pin. Now I can just unpin if I feel the need to. Do I feel the need to? Can just do rook d1, bishop d5, and then yeah, okay, I'm just gonna do unpin. Simple chess. Yeah, I'm pinned. I'm not gonna just stay pinned for no reason. I'm gonna unpin. Rook d1 next. Maybe h4. Try to say that the bishop is not having that many squares. Like he might have to play bishop to h6, which is kind of ugly. Bishop almost feels trapped over there, but yeah, rook d1. Maybe look for queen f5. Improve the position of my queen. Could also be a candidate. Now, a small issue that we have is we don't have a clear knight move to start attacking the d6 pawn. But yeah, I'm pretty sure we should be able to solve that. So Yeah, we're just gonna have to take it step by step. I'm gonna do rook d1. Okay, so he plays c4. Okay, we don't have to react to that. We can just ignore. I can also just play b4. Also c4 kind of gives me additional knight b4 plan. But yeah, I think can just sort of ignore for now. Rook d1, if cb, we take with the pawn, take towards the center. You'll see that while playing this style of chess of going little by little, just making steady improvements, your opponent tend to kind of go nuts. Because beginner's mind, okay, even like 1900 rated player online still has this sort of issue. It's not like ultimate beginner, but it's vulnerable to this. Beginner minds wants to see everything very concrete. Like, what do I do now? What do I have for lunch? Where are we gonna go out? Can I get a dessert in the meantime? You know, that kind of stuff. They need to see move by move, and it's like a deer trapped inside, basically. Inside of, like, I don't know, a small apartment. No, deers are wild. They want to travel around. They don't like it in the houses. Okay. King h8. Kind of what I meant, like just a very useless move. But what do we do next? So the problem is that we don't have clear way to make progress. Like knight b4 would be what we initially kind of agreed on. And honestly, that just feels like winning the pawn. However, we could also consider a plan to try to get rid of his most active pieces. I was considering knight e2 with f4 idea. The problem with knight e2 is that it allows knight d3. So yeah, might as well go simple, knight b4. He has knight f3 check that you wanna at least have on your radar. Although in that position, king h1 is a funny but pretty crashing move. So I think we can go for this. And bishop g2, simply king g2, and the knight on b4 is a great piece covering d3 as well. So yeah, I think knight b4, well, thanks to his c4. Yeah, it's just a great move. And knight f3 is very scary. Like bishop takes, you don't want to lose control over the light squares. You can easily get mated there. Considering he takes, then he teleports a queen to h3. You get mated on g2 with two pieces like this. You're cooked on g2. But yeah, we just had king h1, and he cannot take the rook because I take the bishop with a fork. So important sidestep. He just goes for trade. I'm gonna recap. And his position is, yeah, more or less okay, except the backward pawn that he started the game with. We're gonna recapture with the pawn, stopping knight c4, same situation like before. Rook d6 on the agenda. If bishop f4, I think we take with the e-pawn. Okay, he goes passive. All right. We need to check for his threats. He may be willing to do a5 to get rid of this annoying knight. I'd love to get rid of this knight as well, because it's controlling some important squares and it's his most active piece. So a move like knight d3 comes to mind, threatening to take and also threatening knight c6. And kind of like that. Could also play knight d5. Knight d3, he may have to go queen c8. Yeah, not super sure exactly how to get started because I feel like he may want to push. But I'm just gonna do knight d5, threatening to take and then pick up the d6 pawn. So he has to do something unpleasant with his bishop yet again. Maybe he goes back to g5. Why not? It keeps the pawn alive, so might as well do the bishop move. And next up, we could consider going pawn to h4, making his bishop less active. forcing his bishop to h6, and then we can turn with the knight on b4. And notice how he no longer has the same bishop e7 resource. Yeah, with bishop there, knight b4 actually kind of wins the pawn. And bishop f4 we take with a knight. And okay, pause the video and think about what would you play on bishop takes. Okay, good, he went for it. Because arguably taking, allowing queen h4 gives him some counterplay. Kind of doubt, but yeah, I was thinking rook h1 could be a genuinely safer and better move. His only move would be g5, but then the bishop is trapped. So maybe just like knight h5. Yeah. Also taking, queen takes, he looks completely winning as well. Rook h1, queen g4, king f1. He has to stop mate with like h6 kind of move. Yeah, I'm gonna do this simple one. Okay, we have to speed up. Only 20 seconds left. Oh. That, of course, kind of facilitates the procedure, but yeah, I think the position was already winning enough. Alright, everybody, now time for the final two exercises of the video. So, first one on the board, the key theme is finding out what is the weak square and how to successfully exploit it. So feel free to pause the video, don't rush, and you can kind of clearly notice that d5 is the weak square because it cannot be defended by any pawns. So the most tempting move is to play knight d5, which is still leading to a better position for white. However, it's not the best move because, well, first of all, black can get rid of the knight. And also, they have the option of playing around the knight for a bit, and the situation is still not that clear. So, instead to fully exploit the weakness of the d5 square, it's very clever to firstly exchange the main defender of the square, which is the e6 bishop. Therefore, bishop d5 was the move played by Vasily Smyslov. And the point is, after whatever black does, we trade the bishop and we can successfully plant the knight on d5 forever without our opponent being able to ever get rid of it. Vasily started by first doubling up rooks and focusing on the backward d6 pawn and won the game pretty convincingly. So congrats if you found that move, and let's move on to the final exercise. So for the final one, we have Boris Spassky with the black pieces. As the video, try to get familiar with the main weaknesses in the position, the weakest squares, because that's gonna kind of easily generate the solution. First of all, backward pawn on h3. Not so easy to win because the bishop defense. And also, while looking for weak squares, we see h4. But more importantly, f4, because we have easier access for it with a knight. So if you look at knight f4, that would actually be close to winning the backward pawn on h3. But the problem is white can get rid of the knight by taking. And in fact, after knight takes, if you wanted to take with the pawn and then bring the knight, this potentially gives white an interesting try to sacrifice the pawn and open up their bishop. So instead, once you figured out f4 is the key square, same procedure as in the previous one, we trade the main defender of that square by playing knight b4. This is what Boris Spassky, former world champion, did, and won effortlessly after knight takes and then knight f4, literally winning the h3 pawn, which would lead to checkmate in the near future. So white felt the need to sacrifice the exchange, but of course the upcoming position was easily winning for black. Thanks everybody for making it this far into the video. Please let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this format with the exercises, because I could add more of these to like the usual Jubava London or Karakan videos. And yeah, that's pretty much what I had for you today. So I'll see you around. Have a good one.